where we consider the report and say whatever we want to say, and as a committee make those inputs, a committee resolution. The meeting is officially open. I'm sure we'll have a report, and members have actually read the report. The report was sent to them with minutes. If not so, members will correct me. So in that light, we can shoot straight and say our say where we need to enrich the report. Let's enrich the report. The time is now. Let me allow that process with honorable members. Let me see hands of members who wants to speak. Honorable McDonald, I can see you want to say something. Who else wants to say something? I know people are going to raise their hands at the back. I will also look at that.
Chair, Honorable Hansinger's hand was up before mine. I'll come in after him if it's okay with you, Chair.
No, it's okay. It's just that I'm not seeing it here. I saw you because you are on the screen. So it's okay, Honorable Hansinger, Honorable McDonald. Who else? Who else?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Hello?
Yes.
Who's that?
Good job.
Okay, Jobe. Jobe, you'll be number 3.
Chair Tolashe, may I also raise my hand, please?
Number 4, Honorable Tolashe. Okay, for now, let's take those hands. We'll come back. Honorable Hansinger.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chair, and good morning, colleagues. Great to see everybody on the screen. Chairperson, if I could just raise a point of how important this report is. You might recall that soon after we started with this 6th term, there was a conversation as to at what stage the committee would have a particular opportunity to engage with regards to the soon following key performance areas and key performance indicators and strategic plans, but then more in particular, the performance indicators and targets that would then be developed from where we are now considering a sort of global budget within the framework of the department, incorporating all 7 programs. Now, as I see it, this is the opportunity. This is the opportunity where we could make particular recommendations, but then also give particular direction and guidance with regards to our experiences, so that we shouldn't just see this as the finalizing and approval of a report, but that we should recognize this opportunity as the one that would play into the next phase of where we are in the budget cycle, but then also as a document that would speak to the next operational expression in the form of performance settings and targets.
Yes, you are correct, Honorable Hansinger. Are you through?
For now, yes. For now, yes, Chair. Just by means of introduction, but also that we realize how important this document is, in sort of with reference to the points that I've emphasized.
Thank you very much, Honorable McD.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all the honourable members and everybody else that's here. Good morning, Chair. I'm a bit concerned that there's only three recommendations in this committee report. There was way more recommendations done by, and raised during the previous meetings we had, and the 3 points that are left here does not cover all the things that we've said, and I think we must revert back to the minutes of that meeting so that we can give this report a little bit more meat. The problem is that it's got a lot of committee observations, but it only leaves us with 3 committee recommendations, and some of the recommendations and things that we were discussing, especially where we said that we must ensure that the money that we spend is also sent to the rural communities for roads, so that we don't use all the money that is, for example, for road maintenance in the city areas, and that the rural community during this period are also sufficient money for that. But that recommendation is not in there, Chair. That's just one of the recommendations, and I think we must be allowed some time, Chair, to finalize this report and add more recommendations before we adopt this report, Chair.
Honorable McD, as I've said, this is the time. We are allowing you time now, as Honorable Hansinger has said, that this is the moment we've been waiting for. And I think let's take that moment. We have 3 hours. Let's do what we need to do. Thank you. Baba Mondis. Job. Honorable Ketamabala, are you with us?
Yes. How are you, Mangete?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay. And how are you, Honorable Member?
No, I was actually, my concern was the same like the one of Mr. McDonald, because if you can check the shifting of fund and adjustment of fund is not being captured in our recommendation, because remember there's a lot of impact that happened in this adjustment. Some areas that some projects that were not being accommodated because of this COVID-19. So I was trying to check how we're going to input on all those recommendations that is not in the industry recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Tolashe.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Good day, Honorable Members. Indeed, Honorable Chair, I think we read from the same page with Honorable MacDonald. But if we can put the recommendation that suggests us the process of taking away money by Treasury to different departments and entities, if that can be put very clearly, so that it does not look like to be an event, but it be a process that, as the financial year moves on, we quite emphasize and we make everybody aware. I'm saying so because, Honorable Chairperson, sometimes it creates an impression that it has just happened, and it doesn't augur well to our people where service delivery is supposed to be taken to. So if we can have that recommendation that really explains that, so that department in future can be able to take us through either on a quarterly basis, so that we can understand what might be the eventuality by the time that process came to implementation by Treasury. Thanks, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Members, I think we are in agreement that we should nourish this report. I think this is an opportunity to do exactly that. Let's have inputs by members and test them as a committee. let me have hands of members who wants to kickstart that process. Any hand?
Can I raise a question, Chair, in general?
Yes, raise it.
Chair, my question is, how do you want us to proceed with this, page by page? Or are we jumping directly to the last section where we make, you know, how do you want to go about this?
Well, depending on how much we want to make input, but I think it will be prudent, as we have read the report, to allow members to speak on a report. Because if you go page by page, it means one member may come 10 times, that sort of a thing. Let's deal with the report holistically.
Chair, if I can start off with, I've got one or two things that I think that we discussed on the last meeting, and then that I think we should be in the recommendations, Chair. Is one, we did discuss that we would like not to see job losses, especially in our entities. During this period where there's a lot of financial constraint, but yet we would not like to see job losses in our entities. I think that was one of the things that we discussed when we were here last time, or I specifically raised that. And then one of the things that I saw that was in the committee observations was in the taxi recapitalization. I think there's never been a better time during this period that one of the recommendations should be that this taxi recapitalization project must be fast-tracked, and that we can, because we have a serious industry problem there, and I think it's the time to fast track this, even though because every year that money gets rolled over, and I think now it's a time that we must spend that money, Chair. That's my two for now, Chair. I might come back at the end.
Honorable members, taxi recapitalization must be fast-tracked. We must try and avoid job losses. These are the two inputs or recommendation by Honorable MacDonald. Are we fine with them? Can we make them a committee resolution? Are we happy with them?
Chairperson.
Yes.
You see, the problem is we don't hear, because I don't know what is happening with the sound. We don't hear what Mr. MacDonald is saying.
Wow. Do you hear me? Do you get me?
Yes, I do hear you, but yes, I do hear you.
Let me just repeat what he has said, so that you capture it if you hear me. He has raised two issues. He wants the committee to consider as the committee resolutions. Try to cap job losses as number one. Speed up this program of taxi recapitalization. That is number two. I hope you got it, Honorable Ketamabala. Hello? Mondis?
Don't know, there's something wrong with the
Chair, because I heard Honorable MacDonald and your summary, I also second Honorable MacDonald that those two should be part of our recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we take it Any other view
Chairperson.
on these two matters?
Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Manchu.
Good afternoon. Chair, we've got 3 hours. I wanted to come with a proposal. I'm not opposed to what Comrade MacDonald is saying, Honorable MacDonald. Can I maybe suggest that you said it might take too long? I don't think if we start by committee observations, we will take too much time. That is a suggestion that I think can streamline our process. We take each and every of the observations and say, out of that, do we want to couch a recommendation if it is not already there? If it is already there, do we want to refine it? And I think the committee observations are enough for us to be able to produce recommendations such as what Honorable MacDonald has said. So if you agree, Chairperson, that I think would assist us so that everybody can participate and we can even move more quicker. Thank you, Chairperson. Just a suggestion.
I can see heads. I can see heads right behind you, Honorable Mang. That suggests that it is a feeling. You may not see them because you are looking at me. Just keep on looking at me. I see. That suggests that should be the route, and I'm not opposed to that route. It means I must just get it clear that these two already, because they are here, we are fine with them. The Honorable MacDonald recommendations. Valerie?
Yes, Chair.
Is it possible for you to screen for us direct to the observations, committee observations?
It will be difficult to screen, Chair, because it's a Word document, but I can probably read it to members.
Honorable members, are we fine with that?
Chair, can I make a further suggestion?
Yes, sir.
Is that under that heading, and now that we've made general remarks, could we maybe look at either entities or either each of the 7 programs of transport, so that we are focused on particular service delivery areas?
Service delivery areas. Yes. But we don't have a problem in Valerie reading them, okay?
No, not at all. No.
Okay, Chair, then I can read it. Observation number 1. It says, despite the aviation industry having been hardest hit by the global impact of the pandemic, the supplementary budget makes no mention of allocation to the aviation industry, specifically AXA and SACAR. I'll continue, Chair. It was noted that only 4.6 billion was reallocated, and the members express hope that the reallocated funds would affect.
Chair.
Valerie, just a bit.
Sorry, Chair. Could we then deal with that recommendation, that observation, and we couch recommendations, if any?
Okay. You want it one by
possible.
one.
Sorry, Valerie, sorry. But I
No
think
problem.
if we deal with one at a time, it might help us to move quicker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable members, I may not see you because my screen is full. Can you deal with that one? The first one. Any hand?
Yes. Can I start, Chair?
Start, Honorable Manu.
Thank you very much. My proposal is that the department in its upcoming adjustment budget, which I'm assuming will be coming in October, should consider, what's the right wording, making available resources for AXA and SACA. That would how I would sum it up, Chair. The English might be polished.
Making resources available for AXA and SACA. Honorable members?
But, Chairperson, give me, it's Chris Hunsinger, Chair?
Yes, Honorable Hunsinger.
Are we in agreement with a statement that we say that the aviation industry has been hit the hardest? And if we are in agreement with that, on what basis do we make such a statement? Then, in terms of requesting additional budget for that, it's a state-owned entity, and all the expenses are covered through the budget. So, in what way, are we justifying additional budget for this? So, I don't understand why this particular emphasis on AXA and SACA. All the entities are hit, and so I need some clarity there.
Well, I think Honorable Mangu will add if he wants to, but I think from where I'm seated, it is from the observation that these two entities has not been given anything according to the sentence that has been read. Am I right, Honorable Mangu?
Chairperson, yes, you are correct. Maybe I can add on by saying to colleague Honorable Hunsinger, it is what was discussed. The observation is based on what we discussed, and there was consensus. Unless we say that is not an observation we made, I am making the assumption that that was the observation, and I'm looking at the minutes. Even the minutes do highlight others, but these two are specifically highlighted. So the basis is on our previous discussion of that recommendation I'm proposing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, just to add to what Honourable, sorry for interrupting you, Chair, apologies. What Honourable Manchu has mentioned and is that if we can just polish the English, but also add there that especially with the capital projects that they were planning, like the extensions of the runways, and that this is what we discussed in the previous meeting, is that we must find a way that they can still be capitalized, so that in this period that they can continue with the development of the buildings and the runways and all of that. So if we can just word this properly. Sorry, Honourable Manchu.
Now, colleague, that makes sense to me, because now we're getting specific. So if we could mention those specific infrastructure expansion projects, that would, to me, make far more sense than to make a general statement based on no scientific fact that the aviation industry hits the hardest. That, to me, is something that you would read in a magazine. It's not our function. Our function is to be specific. So I support what Honourable McDonald said, and I would then ask for the replacement and reformulation of this sentence so that we give expression to specifics, so that at the end of the day, it's measurable and applied to service delivery.
Seemingly, we are converging on this point as a committee. Am I correct? Yes, thank you.
Chairperson?
Yes?
It's Honourable Sitlolo here.
Mkhaish.
Le guy. Ke a leboga. Ke itumella go go bona.
Ke itumelletsa ntse o phetse sentle Mkhaish.
Ke a leboga. Honourable Chair, I just wanted to perhaps also add a remark as it relates to the aspect of service delivery, and also agree with Honorable MacDonald as it relates to infrastructure. Would it then be plausible to then recommend that the two said entities then report on their objectives as it relates to infrastructure development? They submit those to the committee, so that then when we talk about the provision of resources, then we understand exactly from a scientific point of view what exactly are we requesting these resources for, what infrastructural developments as made by the example by Honorable MacDonald of these entities, what is it that they need to achieve? So that when we do indicate that they need to be allocated resources, financial or otherwise, they are based on their strategic objectives as well. Thank you.
Honorable members, I think we are converging on this issue. The issue raised by the honorable member Tlolo, as I understand it properly, will be an issue that comes after this report. And I think we do not have a problem with that, if that is our understanding. Thank you. Can we move?
Chairperson?
Honorable Manu?
Yes. Can I, with your indulgence, maybe then suggest, given what my colleague, Honorable Hansinga is saying, that we amend that observation, not to say that it was hardest hit by global impact, but rather we note that these two entities did not receive any allocation, and their infrastructure programs are affected, something that talks to that directly. It will then link to what the recommendation is, so that we remove the reference to them being hardest hit and so forth. That is my suggestion, and I'm sure that's the last one on that one. Thank you, Chair.
I'm in agreement with that, Chair.
I can see honorable members noting, Honorable Hansinger, Honorable Tlolo, Honorable MacDonald. So that becomes our resolution. Agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Valerie, can we go to the next one? Valerie?
Excuse me, Chair, can we add content to SACA specifically?
Add content. If you add content, give us an idea. Agreed?
Chairperson, the calibration aircraft that needs to be replaced is something which is of real urgent importance. Just as a further extension of what should be looked at under SACA?
Yes, yes. Okay. Are you done, Honorable Member?
For now, yes, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie?
Can I read, Chair, while she is still unmuting?
Chair, can the host not allow me? I can share the document. I've got the document here. Then I can put it on the screen. It will assist us all.
Okay. Put it on the screen if you can. Let's go to the second one.
It was noted that only 4.6 billion rand was reallocated, and hope was expressed that the reallocated funds would be used effectively.
Yes. Any input on that, honorable members? That was the second one. Honorable Manu is correct.
Can I come in?
That is Mhlonishwa Mapena.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I think a while back, a concern was raised by ironically, in particular by Mr. Mangu, and of which I think it was a universal agreement in the committee, to say that we are a portfolio committee. Therefore, to say that we hope that things would be done correctly as it relates to governance. It's a bit unsettling, Chair, because it seems like it renders the committee to be at the mercy or to movers to be at the mercy of the department, and that we're hamstrung, and that there's nothing that we can do, and there's no influence, or there's no direction that we can provide, and that all we're left to is just to hope that things would be done in a constitutional democracy where there are prescripts and principles in terms of the law and policy. So therefore, I think it augurs well that we actually we changed this one as well, because let's say that it was noted that FOPO was reallocated and hope was expressed. No, there was no hope which was expressed. The committee was very clear that the funds should be utilized as they are supposed to be utilized and as according to the annual performance plan of the department. And also, this also extends to the points which have been made now, in a way that we can also be in a position to track, not only track, but track and monitor the implementation thereof. So I think to say the committee hope was expressed is a bit loose, to be honest with you, and I think it can be amended.
Your suggestion, as I get it, let me test it with other members. Honorable Mapena. Let's hear other members on this one. The suggestion that let's properly correct this second observation. Are we agreed? Yes, sir.
I do agree that, in fact, it is, for me, it is quite loose, and I don't think that it augurs well with us as a committee. I think we've done increasingly well as a committee over the past year or so, and I think that kind of writing is not to the quality of this committee. Yes, the committee does note the reallocation of 4.6 billion. But it does not hope that the money will be reallocated, funds will be used effectively. The emphasis there should be that the committee notes the reallocation, requires that it be provided with a framework of note as it relates to the annual performance plan of the department on how these funds are intended to be effectively utilized by the department. Now, we are looking for reports of some sort from SACA and from AXA on what is it that they would require as assistance as it relates to the infrastructure and whatever it is that we discussed on the first observation. So mine would be, the emphasis needs to be that we do want a framework of some sort on how this particular 4.6 billion will in actual fact be effectively utilized by the department, so that tomorrow it does not seem that the department was hopeful, but in fact the department, or the committee rather, was insistent that it be given a framework of how this particular monies will be allocated within the department and used effectively. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson.
That is Honorable Ramatwa.
I want to apologize first. There is load shedding. That's why I'm on and off.
Okay. Apology taken.
I want to join those who are indicating, honorable members that are indicating that the money must be used effectively. by adding that there must be value for money, so that they must use it, and also they must be able to account for it, and it must be used properly and effectively. Thank you.
I think there's an agreement. Yes, honorable member.
Yes, Chair, may I?
Yes, you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think maybe we need to assist one another to make a recollection of what the discussion was. I think the discussion was in the context of what the department had anticipated, that the budget will be cut by a more significant amount of money. And the 4.6 billion came as a way of saying only 4.6 billion was trimmed off, for lack of a better word. And I think that was the context. It was not to say yes, 4.6 billion was trimmed off. So that was just to note that particular thing. And yes, the colleagues are correct. My suggestion would simply be more radical to say, let's remove that observation. I don't see how it adds value to what we want to bring across. Thank you, Chair.
Here we go, honorable members. I'm sure we all remember this one. Are we in agreement as a committee?
Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Ramada.
Thank you. Maybe it's because I joined late, but my understanding is that even if they have got that money, we will be emphasizing that they must use it effectively, and there must be value for money, for the money that they are going to use, that they have been appropriated. I don't know, but that's my understanding, Chairperson. I think we need to have that. We can just panel beat what has been written in the report to make sure that what we are saying, it's what must be in the report. Thanks.
Chairperson, can I just maybe just for the that time? I think if you also read the report, I think Mr. Mangu is also correct to say perhaps the way that it can be framed, because in the report it is noted that in terms of economic classification, transfers and subsidies declined by 4.6 billion rands, down from 6.6 billion rands before the adjustment to 6 billion after the adjustment, translating into a decrease of 4.6 billion rand or 7.5%. So effectively, yes, Mr. Mangu is correct to say that is actually a representation of the budget decline from 60 billion rands to what it is now. So I think, or we can have in part two parts of this recommendation. It was noted that 4.6 billion rands or the budget is declined by 4.6 billion rands or 7.5%. And then also the committee expressed that of the remaining reallocated funds of 56 billion rand after the adjustment, therefore the funds should and must be utilized effectively.
Okay. I think, honorable members, the understanding here is that Honorable Mangu is correct. This was a note of what we have lost as a department. 4.6 billion has been cut, and I think at that point the hope issue was the committee hopes that this money will be utilized effectively where it is going to be allocated. And it is correct that we can either live with that or ignore, because the point here is for us to note that we have lost 4.6 billion. I think that's mainly that's the issue. Can we agree on that, honorable members?
I'm in agreement.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. Can we go to the next point, observation?
A discussion.
Yes, Honorable Manu, you want to continue reading?
I wanted to continue and assist Honorable Mangu, the chair.
Who's that? Honorable
It was Honorable Sitlolo here.
Okay, number 3.
A discussion was needed on how all the transport entities, or at least their infrastructure and assets, could be designated as national key points to stop destruction of transport infrastructure, Chairperson.
Okay.
Sorry, it became dark in here, Chair, because my lights also just went off.
No, it's okay. It's okay, Honorable Member. Let's also accept the point that we are dark ourselves, me and you. What is your take on this third point? There's a point, Honorable Member. Do we want to enhance the point, Honorable Mabena?
I'll come in after. I saw because Honorable May was first, and then I saw Mangu, so I'll come in after the. I'm the two of them.
Okay, Honorable May.
Morning, Chairperson. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Chairperson, I've read the report, but my biggest worry is infrastructure. You know what? Last week on Monday and Friday, I was in oversight in the Eastern Cape. I visited all the places, entities, but especially Prasa in Port Elizabeth. And I'll tell you one thing. I was so shocked. The building in Port Elizabeth, it's in a dilapidated condition. I went in to buy tickets, and I asked, there's two, what do you call it, this handy houses inside the station. I asked the guy, the security, where can I buy a ticket? He said, no, go to that guy. He's got a moon bag, and I bought my ticket for R9. And I asked him, where's your office? No, we don't use the office here. You must see it on a Chairperson, and honestly, I think in future, as far as oversight is concerned, we must visit more than Gauteng, places like East London, Port Elizabeth, maybe Durban, I don't know. But we'll have to keep an eye on infrastructure. It's so important. And I spoke to so many persons on the train. We traveled from Port Elizabeth to Utah. You must see the coach. It's in a terrible state. Infrastructure must be the main thing in 2021. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable May. We have adopted an approach that sets us moving forward, reading our observation and commenting on the observations that we have just read. We appreciate your experience. I thought I should just raise that point because some of us have had problems when we started, so might have lost the track along the way, but it's okay. We do appreciate that information. We will deal with it. Honorable Manu. Honorable
Unmute.
Manu.
My apologies. Yes, thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Chairperson.
I would like to propose that we amend
Honorable
the
Manu
observation.
on the floor. We'll take you, Honorable Ketamabala, after Honorable Mapena. Let's allow Honorable Mangu to finish. Yes, Honorable
Thank you,
Mangu.
Chairperson. I was saying that the point of the discussion was specific to PRASA infrastructure. It was not broadly transport infrastructure. So I think it's too broad. We need to narrow it to be specific that we noted the dilapidation or vandalization of PRASA infrastructure stroke assets. And then as a recommendation, we will then take a recommendation out of that, that the department start a process within 60 days of approving this report of application. I don't know what that process is, to declare this infrastructure as a national key point. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Mapena.
No, thank you so much, Chairperson. Before I start saying anything, I think there's someone who is using a laptop, and I think there is a key which has been permanently pressed on that laptop. Hence the sounds of the drums in the background. Nonetheless, Chair, I think it would be important for me to underscore that I was not part of that meeting. I think this is the only meeting which I missed of the portfolio committee. But as far as that is concerned, we did an oversight to PRASA just about, I think it was 3 weeks ago. And in there, I think we met a gentleman called General, who is in charge of security at PRASA. And he gave us assurance that he needed about 6 months for him to fix and turn around and securing the rail infrastructure at PRASA. And we're made to believe that they do have a budget and that a plan was on the tracks. And I think at the time that we went there, he said that he'll be finalizing the tender process, I think, in the next 3 days, which we expressed deep concern that but if we say that, then we want to declare all PRASA infrastructure to be national key points, understanding that the National Key Points Act states that all national key points are to be secured and are a responsibility of the state and needs to be secured by the SAPS. And there's currently a tender process that is on the go that seeks to finalize the appointments of security companies that will actually be securing the PRASA infrastructure. What then happens, because we know that some of these contracts, when they are signed, it's not a 1-year contract, it's not a 2 years contract. They tend to be a much longer contract. So what will then happen if a company is given 5 years at the tune, maybe say, of 1 billion rands to secure the infrastructure? Because as we speak now, the reason why PRASA is reviewing that process is because they were taken to court, you know. So we move this, we give it to like is declared national key points. SAPS now comes in. The Department of Police has the sole responsibility of securing that infrastructure. Look, it is all good and well. The intention and purpose is good, but I'm just I just wanted to throw that in there to say, I don't know what was the thinking behind that, because seemingly we're also saying that PRASA has literally failed to secure their infrastructure, and that we express no confidence in the ability of PRASA in future to even have the ability to secure their own infrastructure. And we're saying this is the biggest point of no confidence in the abilities of PRASA to secure their own infrastructure. And there's a budget which they have and the processes which they're embarking on now. How does then this hypothetically speaking, if our wishes were to be granted in the next year and all PRASA infrastructure are declared national key points, and Mr. General, we saw General there, he was very enthusiastic and quite confident that he will wrap up the process of appointing security companies very quickly. And he also has plans of having e-security installed in all the PRASA stations. And Chairperson, you expressed that you have that you have confidence in General to complete this process. So I'm just asking Chairperson, noting that I was not part of the meeting which to also discuss this. Thank you.
No, thanks, Honorable Mapena. Let's finish this point.
I can add
so that we can take other points. Honorable Ketamabala, you want to say something on this point?
Can I say something after Honorable
I can't hear them. I don't know what is happening. Is it because of network in my side? Because if you keep on switching the network.
No, we can hear you, Honorable Member. Go on, Mr. Ketamabala.
Now you see, Honorable Ketamabala, somebody's cheering when I'm here because of this network. Can you hear me?
Honorable
Ketamabala. Hello? Yeah. I think Honorable Ketamabala has problems. Honorable members will have to persevere this. When he comes in, maybe we should understand that. Yeah. Honorable Ketamabala, can we hear us? We'll get him after he, when.
Can I make this? Chairperson, can I?
Will allow him.
Chairperson, can I make a suggestion on the agenda? That's not me. I don't know where that comes from. It might be, yes, let me rather not make it.
I'm my brother. Okay, this is my... Hello?
Yes, Honorable Ketamabala.
Yes.
We have given you a platform. You can
Chair,
say what.
If I can just assist, can Honorable Ketamabala just put off his video, then he will have enough bandwidth so that he can speak to us.
Honorable Ketamabala, I hope you hear that. Switch off your video and just speak. We have an image of you with us here already.
It's gone.
Let's take Honorable Ramadwa. You said you wanted to come in on this point. Honorable Ramadwa.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I would like to align myself with the proposal that was made by Honorable Mango of National Key Point, because I'm saying this because we had securities there at PRASA, but there was still vandalizing and many challenges. So let us pursue this issue at National Key Point. I understand what Honorable Mabena is saying, but the general has not yet appointed any security for now. So I think let us pursue National Key Point and make sure that what we are saying is being taken to the department. Thank you.
Okay. I think we are concretizing this point of a meeting, the observation which was made in a meeting. Members who are coming in are also raising issues as they have seen it from the oversight that we're coming from. Where we all agree, honorable members, is that currently there needs to be some work to secure the key points that we have when it comes to this issue of PRASA. Because even before we arrive at the point whether we need to go the national key point route or the security route, something has to be done in terms of the security when it comes to PRASA. I think during this meeting, as Ms. Honorable Mangu puts it, there was that view of maybe we should take a national key point route, and it is also correct that PRASA is doing its utmost best currently.
What?
Could I pursue the committee to say maybe we should allow this process, although we know it that it's not a smooth process, that hence Honorable Mangu say maybe we should allow police to come in because there are court cases after court cases, and we may not even know when is this process going to be finished. But let me try and pursue you that let's allow this process as we have heard it, that there are measures, there are programs that are there to ensure that the security is beefed up properly by PRASA, and allow a program of that nature, or else take a route of national key point in terms of security. I can see that members are ready to talk now. Honorable Hunsinger, Honorable McDonald, who else wants to speak on this matter so that we can close it? Okay, let's take that. Honorable
Mangu.
Yeah, you'll be the last.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Chairperson, you put it very lightly. I don't know whether you have skipped some of the oversight meetings that we had, and I would really ask you to formulate this very specifically. I would suggest that this point be put as strongly as possible. It should be noted that it is with huge concern that we observe the absolute destruction of PRASA assets in general, and that we mention the places that we have physically done oversight. It is furthermore with huge disappointment that we as a committee had to hear that there were places that did not have security at all, and that this was caused through negligence in not paying security guards. Therefore, a permanent solution must be taken with firm direction in either pursuing a route of getting declaration of assets of PRASA as national key points, or by a delegation which allows regional managers to handle the tender process, because in most cases, documents are ready to be signed, but that the centralized structure simply ignores the pleas from the regional managers. And in this regard, I do agree with you that some of the officials and staff with PRASA are trying their utmost best in trying to make things work with as little as what they have. But the structure simply jeopardizes all the efforts of the people in the different layers. That would be my input, so that we put it in strong terms and in very specific terms. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Hansinger. Honorable McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I've got a slightly different view. I think when we discussed this previously, I think it was one of the things that I've raised was that in the wait for the proper security to be appointed in all of these stations and infrastructure, that the committee gets the army to be deployed on the assets of PRASA, so that we can secure the assets and the property of PRASA while we are running through the undemocratic court system of this country, which allows people to destroy our assets while they are busy squandering 5 cents here and 5 cents there with legal fees. And it's time that this committee put our foot down and say the army must come and assist us so that we don't lose any more of our assets. Chair, that's what the point I want to raise.
Honorable Manu. Thank you, Honorable McDonald.
Thank you, Chairperson, for the opportunity once more. Chair, I think firstly, I think what I agree with what the terminology to be a bit strong as suggested by Honorable Honsinga. However, where I do not agree is where we try and recommend how a tender process should be undertaken. I think we should veer off that one. But tightening the language that it expresses our disgust, I agree with that one. Chairperson, we discussed this in the context of the importance of transport as a backbone of any economy. We discussed it in the context of the safety of the people that should be moved by rail mass movement, which are not being moved now. And the issue of a national key point is not something we will get within 6 months. I don't think so. I don't even know what process, but that is what we are saying should happen in the long term. It doesn't stop PRASA to do what they're supposed to do in the meantime. And should this succeed, that PRASA infrastructure is declared a national key point, all processes to unwind or to wrap up whatever is there will ensue. But we can't hold back and watch billions and billions of rands being destroyed and we don't make something that is fair. So I thought we should be clear on that, Chairperson, to say it was in that context, not in a short-term solution. If the army can come in tomorrow, thank God, but that is not our purview, maybe we can say. But we are saying as a committee, even if it happens when we leave, we want to see the rail network in this country being secured. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable members, I think the last point by Honorable Manu.
Chairperson, my finger.
Yes, Honorable May.
Yeah, Chairperson, I disagree with the Minister as well as the committee. What we need, seeing that we have lost billions and billions of rands, not security guards, we need policemen. There's a hell of a difference between a policeman and a security guard. We'll never stop it. We need policemen. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable May is further emphasizing the point I was to make, that seemingly we are converging on the importance of securing our infrastructure the way Honorable Manu is putting it. Can we take that as a committee resolution?
Agreed, Chairperson.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. Honorable Siatlulo, you said you are assisting. Can you ask number 4?
No, I'm assisting, Chair. I've got no issues in assisting. It was noted that a proper revision and review of the budget was taken, but serious consideration should be taken for a consolidation of state-owned enterprises such as RTIA and RTMC into one entity, which may assist the department to reduce expenditure further. The same consideration should also be given to consolidate PRASA and Transnet into one entity. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member Mkhaeshu. Let's hear those who want to speak on this matter as it is. Are we happy? Do we want to beef it up?
Happy.
Happy? Who's happy?
Chairperson,
Honorable Manu?
I wanted to sing that if you are happy and you know it, clap your hands. But I'm not going to clap now. Chairperson, thank you. My observation really is that generally, I think we need to revise the way we present the observations. The observation we are dealing with now says it was noted that a proper revision and review of the budget was taken. Well, I think that is common cause, and that has happened in all the aspects that were discussed. Why we want to highlight it on that one, I am not sure. So I'm saying maybe that first sentence or that portion to the comma needs either to be a generic one at the top, which covers everything, or maybe I could be assisted as to why it is particularly there. Now, what the committee noted was a duplication or where savings could be adhered to. We're looking now into the future of transport. We were saying entities like RTIA or RTMC, that was just an example. I don't want us to limit them to the two. But what the point we were making there was that, and PRASA and Transnet, and I know in the past we have spoken about SAA. I don't know if SAA still exists. But anyway, what I think we should be saying here is that we want the department to undertake a process of revision of all its entities and rationalize them into one. That is the recommendation that should come out of a restructured observation. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable members, are we happy with that?
Yes, Chairperson Chris Hoensinger, I fully agree with that, but also that it should not carry an underlying notion that consolidation is around saving or saving expenditure, but it's really about efficiency and effectiveness. And the two entities mentioned, RTIA and RTMC, is really about who has the franchise on road safety, for instance. And if it's diversified in so many entities, then nobody actually does it properly. So that should really also carry the notion of efficiency and effectiveness rather than the message of consolidating for the sake of saving expense.
I think this point we agree on as a committee. It shall be so noted. Mkhaeshu.
My apologies, Chairperson.
Yes.
We are on number 5.
Yes.
It was noted again with concern that the Public Transport Network grant, the PTNG, was decreased from 13 to 10 cities in the budget that was tabled in February, which would leave 3 cities without hope for a BRT system. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, there it is. Let's get your take on it.
Chair, maybe I can start.
Start, Honorable Member.
I apologize, Honorable Hoensinger, for that. Chairperson, I think it is on record that I've spoken about this issue in one committee meeting as I was advising the committee to perhaps undertake a serious oversight to these cities. And I was specifically talking about the one
Honorable
Honorable Keta Mabala. Can you hear me? Uyangizwa Mhlonishwa? Okay, well.
Yeah, continue, Honorable Member.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. I was very specific in terms of my reference to these BRT systems, Honorable Chair. And I made the example about Rustenburg Rapid Transport. Chairperson, to date, we are talking about close to 3 billion from 2005 to date of the Rustenburg Rapid Transport. The date of completion of this particular project has changed 5 times already. And the department seemingly finds it appropriate to continue feeding into this particular program. And it would be my recommendation, Chair, that perhaps that the Department of Transport must then oversee the execution and the completion of this program, of this project, and that they should be responsible. Because it cannot be correct that a municipality releases a statement in July and says we are dependent on the PTNG to complete this project. And yes, a couple of billions later, and I know I make it sound like billions is 5 cents a Chairperson, but a couple of billions later, we don't have a complete project. We don't have running buses. We've got nothing. What is the responsibility of this committee as it relates to making sure that these imperative projects that will render those cities having an integrated transport network, in actual fact, they reach their conclusion and that people are able to benefit from them? What is the responsibility of the committee? And Chair, I think it's important that we speak to the department and we really make it clear that these particular cities that are still going to run the BRT system should in no way, shape or form get a single cent if we do not have a complete framework of how they intend on completing these BRT systems. The minister said the RRT will be functional by January 2020. Chairperson, it is sad to say that we are in July now. On the 29th of June, they had a test run, a technical test run of 1 bus. And yet there are 18 stations that are not complete. I think we need to take ourselves very seriously as a committee chair and recognize, I mean, Honorable Manu spoke about transport as the backbone of the economy in this country. And if we want to really be seen to be serious, we should, as a committee, be summoning these cities to the portfolio committee, where we can then have the department be reasonable or responsible rather for the oversight of the completion of this BRT system. Because I'm telling you, Chair, we're going to find ourselves in a situation where billions are being spent and yet nothing comes out of it. And it will be our fault as a committee. Thank you.
Honorable Hansing.
Thank you, Chair. I think for the construct of this document, it is important to then categorize what was mentioned now by Honorable Setlelo, but then also extract some of that under the heading of suggestions. And as we can acknowledge in this budget, 3 cities have now been deprived of any further funding. That it should not simply be a matter of us observing the fact that 3 cities have now received no further funding, but that we should acknowledge the expenditure inability which has led to this decision, and that we then recognize the importance of 2 things. The 2 things that caused this expenditure inability of half of the 13 cities and not just 3 should be that the department should assist in a bigger way. It cannot be that for every budget we continuously see 100% target achieved simply because funding has been transferred to the 13 cities, now 10. But that this inability to really execute and implement the BRT system should be part of our suggestions, and that the department then engage on better methods to then make sure that we maintain the 13 cities so that everybody in each of those 13 cities in fact benefit from a BRT system.
Thank you, Honorable Unsinger. Any other taker? Are we okay with the formulation? Honorable McDonald?
Chair, I'm mostly happy with it, but I'm also, one of the things that we said in the recommendations, and when I was finishing up on the previous meeting, was that those cities must come and report to the committee on how the money that they've spent so far. For an example, Mangaung has received more than 450 million rand, which they've spent, but there's nothing, nix. There's no buses. There's buses that they're standing. They've paid 50 million rand for. The buses are standing there. Not a single passenger has travelled on those buses because there's not a single station for those buses that are finished. So our recommendation and my suggestion was then that those cities must each and individually of them come report to the portfolio on how they have spent their money and what are their plans, because we can't continue giving cities money and they use it for other things and not for what is. We will never get the backbone of the economy, transport, fixed if we continue giving people money and they're not using it, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member McDonald. Can we take it that is our resolution? Are we happy with that? Okay. If we are happy with it,
Apologies, Chair. Nature does call. We are on number 6, Chair.
Yes.
The hope was expressed that with the easing of restrictions, some entities would be generating their own revenue, again to carry on with programs and would not need additional financial assistance. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I know you're going to say the committee is not all about the expression of hope, and I agree with you.
We should be firm, Chairperson. We should be firm and very clear.
Yes, so start, Honorable Member. Be firm and be very clear. Okay. Honorable Member, any take?
Chairperson, yes, I think it's sufficient if we just say that entities should be encouraged towards generating their own income.
Yeah.
That's the essence. That's the essence.
Yeah. Is that how we see it? Any other different view?
No, Chair, there is no different view, but just the rephrasing of the observation would be appropriate on this one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I'm with Honourable Manchu there and would like it like that.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honourable Manchu. Chair, we are on number 7, sorry.
Yeah.
Although the budget adjustments were required due to the impact of COVID-19, it was a concern that the allocation for road transport went down by 2.6 billion. The 1.8 billion reduction for the PRMG was queried, especially in the light of old road infrastructure in provinces such as KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and the Eastern Cape. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mkhaishu. Honorable Seitholo. Any take by any
Chair.
honorable member?
Chair.
Honorable McDonald.
I would like us to remove the specific provinces and say all provinces, because the Free State and the Northern Cape and everybody has rural roads that really need maintenance, and although the budget's going to be, and that the money must be spent wisely on they must find a way of that the money that's allocated for provincial road maintenance grant, that the money is spent on the rural roads where people really need roads, and it must be across the whole country. We can't just say that those three provinces. That's my take, Chair.
Okay.
Chairperson.
Honorable Ramada.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I think I agree with honorable members that we must not be specific, because all the provinces have been affected. The rural roads have been affected. Thank you.
Seemingly that becomes a common view. There was a voice that I did not
hear.
It
was me, Chairperson.
Honorable Mangu.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, thank you. I am not opposed to what the colleagues have raised. However, what the discussion here was about, if I may remind us, colleagues, was that the budget was reduced, and one of the comments on one of the slides said because the planning or something, there was not enough planning from the provinces. Now, what is very important is that we must come out strongly emphasizing that in our recommendations, that the department must ensure that before monies are allocated, there is proper planning. Because you can't allocate money later, take it and say there was no planning. In the first place, when you gave that money, you should have assured yourself that the planning was in line. So that was the sentiment that came out as it relates particularly to PRMG. Now, I would further propose, Chair, that if the committee agrees that PRMG be put alone, and because if you go to the recommendations, you'll see that PRMG and PTNG are lumped together. And I would strongly feel that they should not be lumped together. As what colleagues have said in PRMG, that it stands alone, and that the recommendation there that the department ensures approved plans before any further allocation. When it comes to PTNG, my recommendation would that it be linked, its recommendation, to the previous discussion on BRT. That discussion that ensued just before this one, the PTNG recommendation be linked to that discussion. Thank you, Chairperson.
If I could
support.
Support the Chair.
Thank you. Mkhaiz.
The observation number 8, there is a need now more than ever to reposition transport to play a critical role in boosting the economy. It is critical to use the reallocations to improve road infrastructure and boost labor-intensive work opportunities across all provinces to re-engineer the economic drive in all spheres of government, especially in the rural areas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Supported? Or any view?
No, I'm supporting it, Chair.
Supported. Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Agreed. Mkhayesh.
Chair, number 9 reads as follows. Although the introduction of the once-off taxi relief fund was welcomed, the concern remains that the industry has indicated that they believed it was not enough as they would not make use of the fund. Furthermore, the argument for and against 100% capacity loading were noted, with the added concern that the duration of the COVID-19 lockdown restrictions was unknown and the industry may continue to be affected for many more months. Thank you, Chair.
Any taker? Supported?
Comments?
Yes. Any taker? Honorable Lewinsinger?
Chair, I would suggest that we scrap the whole 3.9 since it expresses a particular sentiment for or against the relief fund. Recognizing the fact that the taxi industry does not belong to DOT at all. It is in no way integrated in any formal way into any section or portion of the Department of Transport. And furthermore, I think this committee should then express its concern about any passenger capacity with no adequate precautions. And I think we shouldn't go further than that.
Thank you. Honorable members, are you okay? Any taker?
Chair.
Yes.
Chair. Chair.
Honorable
Yes,
Chair.
Ketama bala au mema kuluma mina man. Chair. I hear what my colleague is saying. However, I think that this was a discussion once more in the context of the adjustment budget, which was indicating some allocation of particular relief. So it was there, it was discussed. So I think that observation the committee should note, but maybe we also restrict ourselves to making a view on the loading capacity, because the money was in the context of money that was being reallocated. So I'm of the view that I rephrased 3.9 should be maintained. However, it should be limited to the observation of the committee of the once-off taxi relief as presented in the budget, and the rest we leave outside. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mansu.
I'm of that, Chair.
Come again? Yeah.
Chair, Honorable MacDonald, I'm in support of Honorable Mansu's recommendation.
Okay. I can see members nodding. Agreed. Agreed. Mkhayesh.
Aibo.
Yeah, Honorable Ketamabala, are you still with us?
I'm still with you, but I don't know what is happening because Honorable Magno always disturbing me.
No, you are always disturbing him. And we understand.
No,
Yes.
Chairperson, I was trying to check the 3 point. What is it? I was trying to check the 3.9 because what I think it needs the phrasing of that one, because I don't remember when we are saying we are welcoming the fund, because the fund was already allocated, and what is happening is that the industry itself don't want to accept the relief fund. They say it's too small. So now I'm trying to check, because on our meeting, our question was this 1.3 billion. What will happen if the situation between the industry and the department is not been resolved? Yes, I'm trying to check where will be our position as a committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Mangu, could you be so kind to repeat the rephrasing for Honorable Ketamabala?
Thank you, Chairperson. He is my neighbor. I will do that particularly. And my friend. We are saying that the committee discussed this matter in the context of an adjustment budget. And there was specific talk about a taxi relief fund. Therefore, our observation should be noting the once-off relief fund as allocated, whatever the right English is, and we do not comment any further on 100% seating capacity and anything else. But the committee observes or notes the allocation of the money because it is significant and it has never happened before. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That is how we have summarized and agreed on this matter, Honorable Ketamabala. Mkhayes.
Chairperson, ki itumella hore ebe se sefane sa me fela se se abuse-wang botlhoko yana. We are in this together, Honorable Mangu. Honorable Chairperson, observation number 10 reads as follows. Given the delays in the reintroduction of passenger rail operations during the easing of COVID-19 lockdown levels 4 and 3, there was a concern regarding whether PRASA would have sufficient cash flow and protocols in place to safely operate in a manner to limit the spread of the virus. Thank you, Chair.
Any taker, honorable members?
Honorable Chair.
Yes, Honorable McDonald.
I'm not 100% sure of the phrasing, but one of the part that we should maybe rephrase should not be that we that whether they would have sufficient cash flow and protocols for safety to operate in a manner to limit the spread of virus, that they ensure that they have sufficient cash flow. There's no maybes on this one, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Hunsinger.
Chairperson, I can recall this discussion, and this was about the announcement that service of PRASA and Metro Rail specifically will commence with the announcement of level 4 that was on the 1st of June. And the committee noted with huge disappointment that services are not in a capacity to then resume, but that it will only happen on the 1st of July. That was the observation, that we acknowledged with disappointment the change from 1st of June to 1st of July. Then a further announcement was made, which we also expressed our disappointment with, and that was that only 4 lines would operate. And that was Pienaarpoort Pretoria, and it was East London, and the southern line in the Western Cape, and also the one PE and East London. Whereas a lot more services is required. And I would therefore suggest that our observation here includes the expected expansion with the COVID-19 mitigation processes and procedures to then extend to the full service as what was expected to happen on the 1st of June as soon as possible.
As whole as Montlake.
Yes.
Honorable members, are we amenable and agreeable to this your proposal?
Chairperson, yes, if I may, but I don't know if Honorable Hunsinger could just repeat what the recommendation is there, or do we leave it at the observation part? No, what really is my slight disagreement is not material at all. It's just the timing of meetings and what we said when, but it doesn't change the facts. But what I'm more interested in is Honorable Hunsinger couching a recommendation there or just restructuring the observation?
Chairperson, I would suggest that we formulate the observation around the fact that services was announced, or it was said that services would commence from the 1st of June, that we observe the change and extension to the 1st of July, and that at the 1st of July, only 4 lines could start operating, and that we then extend that point to a suggestion in saying that the rest should then also come into service as soon as possible. So it's a split, it's an observation and suggestion.
Thank you. As Hoas Montlake.
I agree with that. Thank you, Chair.
I have a observation that we are agreeing on this one as a committee, so it becomes the committee's view on this matter.
Chairperson, last but not least on our observation list, number 11, there was once more a call from members for the finalization of the ETOL funding policy matter. Thank you, Chair.
ETOL policy funding matter. Honorable members, there it is. ETOL policy funding matter. Let me hear your take on this one. Any take?
Chairperson, if I could dare, we did receive an answer at the time. When we posed the question, it was said that the recommendations was formulated and that it was submitted to Cabinet. So I would suggest that we make the observation of having noted this reply, and that we request with urgency that this matter be resolved with Cabinet if it is true that such a submission was in fact made to Cabinet.
Honourable Chair, can we put a time to it so that this doesn't take another 6 months to have a decision from Cabinet?
I would suggest by Friday, if I could, Chair.
No, honourable members, we're not responsible for Cabinet. We are responsible for DOT, and I want to suggest that even when we put time frames, that point must not elude us. Are we agreed, honourable members?
Chairperson? Chair?
Yes, Jambas.
Chair, I agree firstly with Honourable Hunsinger. The only slight amendment I would request is that we don't say if it is true, because we need to accept the bona fides of the people who are telling us that it is a Cabinet. That is the only slight recommendation I would twist there if he agrees. On the issue of time frame, I think we are hamstrung here. I don't think we can put time frames to this one, except to put on a strong displeasure on the non-conclusion of this matter. Because if we say we are putting a time frame, we are putting it on whom? because the department is going to say we submitted to cabinet in 2019. So whom are we putting this to? That is just my feeling. I could be wrong, but I just think that we are hamstrung when it comes to putting a time frame. Of course, I would have loved to see it concluded at a time frame, but I wouldn't want us to put it there just for the sake of saying we put in a time frame, but we can't hold anybody accountable to that time frame. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I can see we are agreed, and I tend to appreciate the combination of these two honorable members, Hunsinger and Manu. It's a beautiful, deadly combination, and other members, of course. Mkhayesu, that was the last. Am I correct?
Chairperson,
Go fela yalo Mkhayesu, a re leboge matsapa a gago tabeng ena.
Chairperson, just another remark, please.
Yes, Honorable Hunsinger.
Seeing that it's the last one under observations, there was also mention of particular infrastructure projects under Sanral in particular. You would recall that I spoke about the Nteto Bridge outside Lusikisiki, and that those infrastructure projects should really be prioritized. That we rather complete the ones that we are busy with as a priority rather than to undertake new projects and new tenders. But seeing that this is a point under Sanral, maybe we can make it 311.1 just to give expression to that as well.
Bagaetsho, ana re itumella kgang ena ha e ba re itumella yona re fiteng ho yona ha e ba hona le
Chairperson.
Yes.
Chairperson.
I'm listening. I'm listening. Okay, no, let me say it in English. I'm saying any takers on the view. That's all what I was saying in Setswana.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes.
I agree in principle. Do you hear me? I agree in principle, Chairperson.
Yeah.
That the e-toll should be done away with, but the time frame should be there because people have been crying over this thing. Why can't we, before the local elections, this e-toll should have been scrapped because they are not all over, they're only in Gauteng. Thank you, Chairperson.
The e-tolls are only in Gauteng.
Chairperson, you and Honorable Makosini come from the same province, so why is the signal different?
No, I am from the suburbs, and he is from the rural area. Any other taker, Baba Jambas?
Well, I'm not Baba Chambers, but just to add here, that thanks to the DA, the e-tolls are only in Gauteng. We blocked them in the Western Cape. So citizens only sent
Chair, that is now out of now.
No, don't worry. The honorable member is from Gauteng himself.
No, Chairperson, light moments are always allowed in a meeting. And I think that's the spirit we have led this committee on. And we take what Honorable Mabena said on a lighter note. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, honorable members. I think on the observations, we have come to the end of observations. Any other thing? Programs? Are we done? Are we happy?
Chair, could I possibly come in?
Advocate, how are you?
I'm good, Chair.
Are you safe?
I am safe, Chair, but you see I'm very cold, so I have my beanie on and I've got my warmest jacket on here.
You seem like you're in Alaska.
It feels
Yes.
like that in my house, Chairperson.
No, let's allow you to come in. You're welcome.
Chair, I just want to come in with some of the comments that members made regarding some of the recommendations. We have to, in terms of this report and for the reporting framework that we use, we have to make sure that the recommendations that we place are recommendations that are specific to the department and within their jurisdiction, what they can perform. Now, some of the recommendations that members made regarding the additional meetings that the committee would require with the cities on the BRT systems. That is more recommendation that the committee should keep and place on their own planning. It's not necessarily a recommendation that we can't tell the minister that the committee is going to call the cities. So that's not a specific recommendation we can phrase in this aspect. We can make the recommendation that the department increase its oversight and possibly increase its assistance to the cities in implementation and the spending of both their IPTN plans and then the expenditure on those plans of the grant. Chair, then also I know everybody wants a resolution to the e-toll situation. As it is a member, aspect that is with cabinet, the committees also in the past indicated their frustration with some of the department's targets when it is linked to a cabinet process, because you can't really determine what cabinet's time frame will be with dealing with those aspects. So I think making use of the wording that it is finalized urgently and as soon as or immediately after the minister hears of the outcome from cabinet, that the committee be informed of that outcome. So I've tried to make those adjustments during the meeting as members made the proposals on the draft document. So if Chair is done now with the observations, and if members want to first look at the observations before I read the possible redraft, then I can come in again at the end, Chair. I just wanted to highlight those issues before we go into the observations.
Honorable members, I think the advocate Almanel is correct. Let's rather go allow her to look at to deal with observations. Agreed?
We just did observations. We are now going to recommendations.
Yes.
So we can make all observations, but then in terms of recommendations, it's within the framework which he suggested, which is great.
Thank you very much. Advocate Nell.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, if I can just read through the observations as the members now changed it, because I tried to rephrase it so that we can make sure that we finalize the report and get clarity from members, because there was some to and fro on some of them having been excluded. So the proposed rephrasing, I just want to check with members for 3.1. Despite the aviation industry having infrastructure and service delivery projects affected by the impact of COVID-19 regulations, the supplementary budget makes no mention of allocations to the aviation industry. That now takes away the heavy impact, and if that's acceptable, then we can leave it as in that way.
Acceptable. I can see members are happy.
Okay,
Let's
Chair,
go
then
to
moving. moving to 3.2, it was noted that the total department budget only received a 4.6 billion reallocation, and that the committee expressed that the reallocated funds must be used effectively and ensure value for money spent.
Agreed.
Chair.
Chairperson.
Honorable Mangu and Honorable
Is
Mape.
it a reallocation or a reduction?
Yeah.
Advocate.
Chair, it's a reduction, but it is, in essence, it's a reduction, but it's also a reallocation.
Yeah.
So if we want to focus on the reduction, then we can focus on the reduction.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll change the reallocation to reduction.
Okay.
Yeah. No, if then I may change that, we note the reduction, but that the remainder of the budget, that is what we are talking about. Effectiveness is not about the 4.6 billion. It's about what is left after
with
that
the
4.6 billion rand. So that is the distinction that we must try and make there. Otherwise, it's okay. Thank you, Chair.
No, Chairperson, I think I wanted to venture in the same direction because I think, as I said earlier on the report, it's noted as 4.6 billion rand or 7.5% reduction. So it's a downward allocation, like it's a decrease. So that 4.6 billion rands does not exist anymore. So therefore, you can't reallocate money which you don't have. So in essence, what Mr. Mango has said is that we note the reduction of 4.6 billion rand or 7.5% of the total budget. However, the remaining funds should therefore be utilized effectively.
Let's go to the next advocate.
Thank you, Chair. I've made the proposed amendments that members suggested. 3.3, a discussion was needed on how PRASA infrastructure and assets could be better secured, and if possible, have it designated as national key points to stop destruction of transport infrastructure.
Honorable members.
Agree to the proposal.
Oscar Voortgaan, advocate. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. 3.4. It was noted that a proper revision and review of the budget was taken, but serious consideration should be taken for a review, rationalization, and consolidation of state-owned enterprises with similar or shared areas of operation into one, which may assist the department to ensure effective and efficient project delivery, as well as reduce expenditure further. I don't know under 3.4, Chair, if you still want to keep the last sentence that was originally there regarding PRASA and Transnet, because that is also a concurrent observation and recommendation that the committee normally makes. We have made it in previous reports, so it's still on the table, but we can remove it if members so wish.
Don't remove it, put it on the table.
Hey, oh, I say, can I say something?
Yes.
Okay, I think I have no issue with what the good advocate has said, but I think maybe just to place into is the emphasis to do away with duplication of it. I think you've touched on entities which are doing or are doing similar scope of work or are doing almost the same. But I think the objective here and the main and the key driver, yes, like you've touched on one point to reduce cost, but the other one was, in a sense, as away with duplication of work.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I agree with you that we must leave Transnet and PRASA, and agree with what Honorable Mabena has said, that of duplication that we must, and we give an example of PRASA and Transnet. Thank you.
I think we are one with advocate. I think that's what you said, advocate.
Yes, Chair. I've just added the duplication concern, and then I will leave the last sentence as the same consideration should also be given to consolidate PRASA and Transnet into one entity.
Mastroben into goed. Laat ons voortgaan.
Chair, 3.5. It was noted again with concern that the public transport network grant was decreased from 13 to 10 cities in the budget that was tabled in February, which would leave 3 cities without a functional BRT system. Chair, I'm just putting the note there. When I read the recommendation later, I've done the split between the PTNG grant and the effective spend and the oversight by the department. Otherwise, under this one, I can just add that the committee further felt that there was a lack in oversight by the department, or that the committee felt the department should improve its oversight over the PTNG spend.
I think the second one comes in a bit better. That like biggie better as the eerste een. Are we agreed, honorable members?
Chairperson, a suggestion for an addition there. Right where we are now in terms of giving expression to what we observed shortfalls might be for the department to engage in the future, is to add the expenditure inability, which we have observed from budgets that's been allocated in the last 12 years. That clearly there is an inability to spend the money which is transferred to them, and that assistance should be considered for that.
Are we happy about it? Another teammates Bakayesu. Thank you. Must prove it was a good. Let's Harambe.
Okay, Chair, to try and add that after the original paragraph, I've added now that the committee further noted an expenditure inability in these cities. The committee is of the opinion that the department should improve its oversight and assistance over the cities implementing their IPTNs under the PTNG budget. Okay, Chair, moving on to 3.6. The committee expressed that with the easing of restrictions, some entities would be generating their own revenue again to carry on with their programs and would not need additional financial assistance. Chair, we can either leave this here or we can remove it, because we have the aviation industry at the top, but there are some other entities that also lose out during COVID. The ports regulator, for example, would also have a revenue loss. They also don't have an allocation. The same with SAMSA, with how the ports were affected during COVID. But there are some that will take up again, even though SACA did indicate if the lockdown lasts longer than 7 months, they wouldn't be able to last longer than 6 months. So we can either take 3.6 out or we can leave it. I just need to get clarity from members on that one.
Let's not leave it. Let's not leave it. Let's live with it. Because that's what we expressed, and that is what is practically being experienced. Honorable members, can we get to that understanding?
Chairperson, if maybe I'm not confused, but we are saying that we're not doing away with it. We're going to leave it in the report.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
No, okay. Yeah, because I was confused when you say leave it, but let's leave with it.
Okay, mangithoka ezomhlonishwa sawukhuluma isindebele sakwethu sizawuvana. Thank you, Advocate. Can we move on?
Thank you, Chair. 3.7. Although the budget adjustments were required due to the impact of COVID-19, it was a concern that the allocation for road transport went down by 2.6 billion. The 1.8 billion reduction for the PRMG was queried, especially in the light of old road infrastructure in provinces and more so in rural areas. So I've now removed the specific reference to those provinces, and we've now shown in the observations a split between the PTNG grant and the PRNG. So the same will come in the recommendations, Chair.
Just an addition there, Chair, if you'll allow me.
Yes, I'm allowing you, sir.
Chairperson, the concern that I have is around the increasing backlog of road maintenance. If we could just add that at the end of the sentence which Advocate Nel mentioned. That particular, that we make an observation of the increasing back on road maintenance in all provinces.
Agreed, members? Agreed.
Agreed, Chairperson.
Let's continue, Advocate.
Okay, Chair, I've just typed up a sentence there, so it will be after the first sentence. Then we add, the impact of COVID-19 has also meant an increase on the backlog of road maintenance in all provinces. Okay, Chair, moving to 3.8. There is a need now, more than ever, to reposition transport to play a critical role in boosting the economy. It is critical to use the reallocations to improve road infrastructure and boost labor-intensive work opportunities across all provinces to re-engineer the economic drive in all spheres of government, and especially in the rural areas.
Agreed. Thank you.
Agreed, Chairperson.
Chair, 3.9. Although the introduction of the once-off taxi relief fund was noted as a novel manner to, I just need to take out the although. The introduction of the once-off taxi relief fund was noted as a novel manner to provide relief to the industry.
Honorable Unsinger, let me allow you to say something.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. I would keep, I'll take out the novel and all of that. It's fine to just note the once-off taxi relief fund, full stop.
Honorable members, agreed?
I think before we agree on this one, you have to get Honorable Ketamabala to say something. Otherwise, it won't be complete. So we must find where he is to agree here. Otherwise, I agree with the Honorable.
I'm in support of that motion.
Yeah, yeah, no. Honorable Ketamabala, are you still with us?
I think, Chair, you see, I don't understand the sentence